of soul.
This is Bass Talk Live. Your host, Mark Jeffries and Matt Pangrack. BTL is brought to you by Lowrance, Lose, Strike King Lures, Bass Cat Boats, Ducket Fishing, Spro, AFCO, Big Bite Baits, Sunline, and TH Marine. BTL coming at you. Good Friday, everybody. Welcome once again to another edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. Yes, it is a rare Friday show. Matthew, he is not here, and it is the watch party with, once again, Mr. Mark Menendez, and let's bring him in now. Mark, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Mr. Jeffries. How about you?
I am doing fantastic. I know yesterday was a challenge, and we'll get into that here in a minute. But we did 3 days of the One Bass U.S. Open, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Tim Klinger gets it done, the former FLW pro or current FLW pro, or however you want to classify him, gets it done a little over 32 pounds on a very, very stingy, tough Lake Mead. And dude, I'm telling you, it was one of the most toughest U.S. Opens that I've seen in the 8 years that we've been covering it, Mark.
You know, Lake Mead it can be a fickle body of water, but then again, it can be really productive when the conditions are right. And one of my favorite places to go, it's such a beautiful place. And, you know, the U.S. Open has a great payout, $100,000, a brand new bass boat involved as well. So yeah, it is a very good paying tournament, and it's a unique format. For those that don't know, it's a pro-am event in which the pro and am fish together and carry their weights to the next day together. Yeah. Pretty cool format. Would love to fish that one of these days.
Yeah, it is a very, very cool place. You think you're in a different part of the world when you're fishing on Lake Mead. It looks kind of crazy sometimes. I know driving to it is one of the most bizarre drives to get to a body of water. You're just out in the middle of nowhere, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's water.
There it is. And what's crazy about it is you say, well, I'll just run over here to the other side of the bay, and it takes you about 8 to 12 minutes to get across there because it's 7 or 8 miles across there. But it is a neat place to fish.
All right. Very cool, though. Tim gets the win, and he was very, very emotional on stage. It was really cool to see him take that trophy and raise it above his head. So congratulations to Tim on that. All right. A lot has been going on since the last time that we've been on. This is back-to-back-to-back events for the guys on the Elite Series. Brandon Polinick gets it done last week at Santee Cooper in just an impressive outing on a very stingy but a little bit better performing body of water than a lot of people thought that Santee Cooper was going to display, Mark.
I agree with you, Mark. I sold it short too. My experience there in the fall said it was going to be ultra tough, but those guys really caught some great weights. They were, you know, in on a lake just like we're on right now. That one cast that catches you a big fish really propels you in the standings. So we're going to see the exact same thing this week.
Man, he just keeps piling up the blue trophies, doesn't he?
You know, when I get back on tour, I am going to go sabotage his boat batteries, you know, cut his fishing line and his reel and put a little tape on it. No, Brandon is just an unbelievable hard worker. He works 24/7 at his craft, and he's become a hell of an angler. And he's a great guy on the water. I've had a lot of time spent in the same areas with Brandon, and he's been a true sportsman all along the way. I'm just so glad we've got him back over here on our side.
All right, back-to-back events. How difficult is that, Mark?
It is. I think, Mark, it's more a mental thing than it is physical. If you have a bad first tournament, boy, it really sets a tone and a hole you have to climb out of. But the physical part of it is equally, it's a marathon, and you have to pace yourself. You have to be very careful not to expend all your energy, be that mental or physical. So it is a long, arduous grind to fish 3 of these events back to back to back.
All right, Clark Wendelant kind of has a commanding lead in the Angler of the Year race. What are your thoughts about Clark?
Today will be the day in which the Angler of the Year will be decided, Mark. I
Really?
think if Clark can go out and catch him a solid bag today and Corey Johnson has problems, it'll end it. I think it'll end it. So Clark has to look at it as today is the most important day of the season from here on out. But I think if he can get through to day 3 this week, I think it'll pretty much sew the deal up. It's amazing the Johnson brothers, they both had tough tournaments at the St. John's tournament this year where last year we all caught them so well, but they have really Corey has come back with a vengeance if you look at how many top 10s he's had.
Yeah, great point. A lot of guys vying for those classic spots too. We are narrowing down the opportunities to make a move and surpass that 40th place mark. There's a lot of big names that are below that line right now, Mark.
Bill Lowen, one of my best friends on tour, he's below the cut. Dollar Bill is the 12.5-pound guy. He catches them everywhere he goes. And Swindle as well is below that line. So been there, done that. I don't think it's going to affect those guys. They look at it as a progression. Okay, I've caught 1 today. I'm going to catch 2 today. We've got plenty of time. They won't panic. They'll be there in the end, but they've got a little bit of ground to make up.
All right, they're going to wrap stuff up at Lake Fork. That could be just an absolute slugfest, especially a different type of Lake Fork with us going there during the fall. But this tournament this week, man, it is really, really important to a lot of guys out there, especially from a business standpoint. We talk about this a little bit on this show, but to be able to surpass that 40th place line, make the Classic, secure a really good finish at this event going into Lake Fork could really substantiate and secure either more sponsorship deals or solidify the deals that they currently have in place.
It certainly will. And I've been that guy going into the last tournament where I only had to catch 1 bass to make the Classic in the last tournament. And that's a pressure-packed deal too, because you don't care if he's this long, Mark, or he's this long. As long as he measures, you're going to the Classic. Yeah. The guys that are a little bit behind, I've been Bubble Boy. I've actually missed the Classic 3 different occasions, being the first guy out. It's painful, and I have immense amount of respect for the guy that's going to be Bubble Boy this year. It changes the whole thing. Going to the World Championship of Fishing, going to that Bassmaster Classic, Mark, it not only gives you a financial basis. What it does to you as an angler, it says, I've been there, I've done it, I've made it, I've got to the pinnacle of the sport, and it gives you a tremendous amount of momentum going through winter headed to the next season. So a lot of motivation there financially and a lot of motivation there personally for all of these guys.
Plus, what you said earlier about it being mentally challenging, you tack on the fact that you have to perform at this event after being through or have been through what you've been through in the previous 2 events. It's a lot of pressure and it's a lot to accomplish to pull through with what you have to do this week at the Chick. All right, let's talk about the Chick, Mark. A lot of the big name guys, a lot of the locals there. What are your thoughts on them being the favorites going in?
Well, the local guys that have a good working knowledge of it have a huge advantage on this body of water because it can be so fickle, Mark. It is a place that when fishing is good, it's wide open. In the wintertime, it's easy to catch one of those 12 to 15-pound fish. Double digits abound in this place. But right now, the Tennessee River in the fall, fish are scattered from a foot deep to 25 feet deep. And then on this body of water, you have 2 X factors. One is the amount of grass, amount of the surface matted grass, and 2, the amount of fishing pressure that this place receives on an annual basis. Take COVID out of the mix here, Mark. And if this place gets fished, there's no moss on any boat ramp in that lake because there's boats coming and going at all times here. So that's your 2 things, is finding that needle in the haystack in the grass where other anglers may not be fishing, or B, knowing those absolute subtleties like Buddy Gross knows along those break lines. We're going to see Buddy out there fishing deep here soon, I'm sure. All
right, we're going to go to the action here shortly after we take a break. one additional note on the event this week, there is a huge team tournament that has taken place on this body of water. How much is pressure and the number of boats going to affect what's going on, Mark?
Well, it will. You put more boats out there, there's more noise, and these fish are used to that. But when you put a team tournament that's going to have 250 boats on the water with our guys, they're out there looking around right now. A few of them have gotten there early, and it will shut it down even further. So it's going to take very finessey tricks to get these bass to commit to your lures this week, or an area that's impossible to get to. And this lake is relatively small on how it fishes. So there's not many of those areas as this water is falling right now to sneak in and get away from other anglers right now.
All right, looks like we're going to see a lot of frogging when we go to the action here shortly in a few minutes. So excited about that. All right, a couple of things real quick. Yesterday, I was talking to Mark before the show. I basically had a Phillips screwdriver stuck in my spine yesterday. So I had my first steroid treatment where they injected steroids into the lower base of my spine. And I thought it was going to be a piece of cake. The guy that did it, the doctor that did it, said, "Do you want to go under or do you want to stay awake?" He goes, "Really, it's not that big a deal." So obviously I chose the path of just, well, yeah, I'll just gut it out. Next thing I know, I feel like I'm getting a Phillips screwdriver stuck down my spine. So needless to say, I was not able to really focus on getting anybody lined up for the watch party. So here's what we're going to do. If you're interested in joining the video feed for the watch party today, all you have to do, send me an email, mark@basszone.com. I will send you the link, and you can join the watch party. If not, me and Mark are just going to take it through the entire hour, and it's going to be a treat to pick Mark's brain on what is going down on the Chick here on day one. I thought it was going to be day two, but I did not realize that they were not going to start the tournament until today because of the whole back-to-back-to-back thing and practice and all that. So day one today, we will get into it in a moment. All right, the other news that I've got to pass along is next week, Matt will be at the Open at Neely Henry, so he will not be in studio. He will be trying to make the Elite Series. Hopefully he will do well, and the progress to his objective and goal of making it to the Elite Series will continue next week. So on Monday, one of the fan favorite shows that we had this year so far was Frank Scalish was on, and he was talking about setting up your boat for rough water. It was brought to our attention from the fans that they wanted to get somebody that was a prop expert on the show to where we can talk about prop setup and all that and everything. Well, on Monday, Frank and his prop guy are going to be on live right here on BTL to answer all of your prop questions, boat setup questions. From what I understand, this guy is an icon from a prop standpoint in the northern part of the U.S. So his name is Todd. So Frank and Todd are going to be on Monday. Then, in addition to Frank being on Monday, guess who's going to be the guest co-host for Tuesday and Wednesday? That's right, Frank Scalish, going to be the co-host, going to get into all kinds of crazy stories that Frank has from being involved in this crazy business 30, 40 years. So very excited to have Frank be the guest host for next week, and should be a great week next week, Mark.
Sounds like it. I used to room with Scaly one of the years he made the Classic, and we've been friends a very, very long time. His knowledge on big water and how to get that boat set up is second to none. So you may even hear me pipe in on that and give him a hard time next week.
All right, very cool. All right, let's do this. Let's take a break, and then we'll come back with the action. Once again, if you want to take part in the watch party, just shoot me an email, mark@basszone.com, and I will fire the link back to you. You can join us via video. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the phone lines to where if you can't join us via video, you can ask Mark a question via the Sunline hotline. So good show today. We appreciate Mark being a part of the watch party, and we will be back with the action from the Chick here in a moment. Everybody stay tuned.
The ultimate fishing system starts with Lowrance HDS Live. The best fish finding tools, from chirp sonar and fish reveal to side scan and down scan imaging, and complete touchscreen control from your trolling motor to your big motor.
We've paired one of the most iconic hulls in the history of bass boats with a proven lineup of trusted accessories. We're bringing you best-in-class value and performance, leaving others in your wake. Turnkey value, turnkey performance. The Pantera 2 is an overachiever in the 19-foot category. Once you hit the throttle, you'll feel the rush, and there's no looking back.
Kevin, what are you doing here?
Oh, I'm just filling in for Billy.
I need a 660 shad crankbaits in the Series 5 model.
We're out.
You're not out. You got all kinds of them right there.
We're out.
Kevin, I need 6.
Have a lollipop.
I do not want a lollipop.
Have a lollipop.
Do you have it in sexy shad color?
At Duck It Fishing, we have assembled the top pros in the country to help us design rods to give you a competitive advantage. Castability, strength, durability, action, sensitivity, weight and balance, and consistency. Combine that with the best warranty in the industry, and you have rods that are pro-driven.
Duck It Fishing, pro-driven.
Blue Water by TH Marine, offering LED lighting solutions for your boat, trailer, truck, ATV, and so much more. Engineered and built to be rugged with waterproof and submersible options. Designed for easy installation, Blue Water is available in a variety of colors and styles. All backed by a limited lifetime warranty. Blue Water by TH Marine.
Let's face it, fishing electronics are no longer an afterthought. They've become a necessity. And at the Bass Tank, our experts match you with the right electronics, provide professional installation, and educate you to help maximize your catching results while providing support along the way. Because let's be honest, it's about catching, not just fishing. And when you're ready for better results, join the Bass Tank team. Visit us today on Facebook or go to thebasstank.com.
Hey everybody, Todd Faircloth here. Want to show you one of my favorite braided lines, SX1 30-pound Sunline braid. I use this braided line for a couple of different applications, and one of my favorites to use for this line is a swim jig. Casts great, and it's small diameter, and just works really great on a swim jig. Another technique I like to use for 30-pound SX1 Sunline braid is whenever I'm flipping like a light, say an 1/8 to a 1/4 ounce weight in grass, small diameter, I don't lose much action on my worm, just works great in those scenarios. So if you're looking for a braided line for a swim jig or fishing a light Texas rig, check out Sunline's SX1 30-pound braid.
AFCO's new Yuri performance shirts are made out of a new fabric. Aeromesh technology, Aeromesh fabric, really breathable. You know, it just doesn't stick to you whenever you're sweating. It's 105 in Florida. You know, you got sun beating down, there's hardly any wind. You know, your shirt won't stick to your back or anything like that. Any little breeze gets through it, and all the AFCO features that you like with the hood, not without a hood, depending on which one you like. It's got odor technology, so your pits don't stink whenever you're sweating. It has thumb loops. So whenever you're driving down the lake, 70 miles an hour in a bass boat, you got the thumbs through here, sleeves won't roll up, so you have no excuse if you get sunburned. Any little breath of air gets through you and cools you down, so make sure you check them out. Any fish, any water, any condition, AFCO has you covered.
All right, we are back. A special Friday show with Mark Menendez. It is the watch party. Let's bring him back in now. Mark, you there?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's go to the action. And what we're going to see first is they are on Brandon Polinick And they just switched from him there. So they're going from Polinick. Let's see who they're going to go to here. There's Clark. They're going back to Buddy. They've been on Buddy quite some time. What do you know about the spot that Buddy's in right there, Mark?
Well, it's a pretty neat place. There's a lot of structure element around that. Plus, he's pushed up on the bank right now in that chunky grass, trying to get active bites. You know what I'm looking at, Mark, is I'm looking at the sky actually there. Here where I am, about 4.5, 5 hours west of Chickamauga, I've got high bluebird skies. With front came through yesterday with rain, and these guys still have a little bit of remnant of cloud cover there. So this thing might end up getting really tough if this cloud cover goes away for them.
So kind of pass that on to the fans. Why not low light conditions when you're trying to get a topwater bite?
Well, that's what most of the guys are trying right now, is to get that topwater bite, but that's getting ready to go away for the next couple of days, except for the first 30 minutes to an hour of each day. One of the best patterns that you can fish in the fall like this is shade lines, getting on that east side of the lake and just running the shade, because the fish will stay more active there in that low light. And then depending upon what the prevalent cover there is how you adjust your lure choice. So you're going to see a lot of our guys doing that. I mean, it's pretty dark there where Cox is, and you can see Buddy, it's pretty dark there as well. So that shade is going to be a big, important player here in the next couple of days, most likely.
All right, this is pretty cool. This is a very unique shot. I think it's great that the fans get to see both these guys doing what they're doing on this body of water. Both of them an enormous amount of success. But let me ask you this, Mark. We've seen them parallel the grass line. We've seen them throw it right in the middle of it. We've seen them throw it to the bank. Is that pretty much the standard for this? Is there not a specific area of the grass that you target during this time of the year with the conditions that they're facing, or is it just all over the place?
It's just all over the place. You know, John Cox on the right is a guy that goes down the bank and fishes what's in front of him. Buddy, as you can see, he's fishing really high percentage places. Right there to the right of his hip, you can see a little point that sticks out, and you can see him throwing to an isolated clump of grass up there in front of him. I prefer to fish like Buddy does, because I think I can anticipate where that fish may or may not be, instead of that big giant mat of grass. You know, he's got an inside grass line he just threw over there too. So those are high percentage places for me in the grass. When I get in that football field of grass, Mark, I get lost. Real quick. So I try to really focus on that outer edge and or those places that are up there real tight like that.
You see the water temp on John Cox's screen there, 68.87. Man, it's been a while since we've had an Elite Series where the water temps were there that wasn't in the springtime.
Exactly. And, you know, they would probably be doing a lot better if that water temperature was about 10 degrees colder.
Yeah.
What's going to be interesting tomorrow, Mark, due to temperature, is if they get these cooler nights like we're getting here in my part of the country, if they don't get fogged in the morning, if the wind doesn't blow tomorrow, that is a real potential worry on my behalf in this tournament. So I would be fishing twice as hard, feeling twice the pressure, knowing that I may only get a limited day the next day. So the guys that jump out ahead in this tournament may be able to ride that even further than what they normally would.
All right, man, you kind of touched on it, but how important is the first 2 hours of the day?
Well, I mean, it always settles you down, Mark. I mean, if you look at Bass Track, you're seeing onesies and twosies. Some of those onesies are 5 and 6 pound fish. So if you're lucky enough to get one of those, it calms you down. It gets you in your rhythm. You know you're going to go across the stage. You know you're halfway home to a very solid day. I think 12 to 13 pounds a day is going to be a very substantial weight in this tournament if you can carry that each of the 4 days. So it just is a good sedative when a 6 pounder smokes your bait first thing in the morning.
All right, we see both guys. Now we see Corey Johnston fishing out, but before when John Cox was on there, what I want to know, Mark, how important is bait fish this time of the year around those grass mats?
Well, it's important, and what Tennessee river fish really like to eat, Mark, they love it when they have big gizzard shad around. So if you're lucky enough to find an area where those big gizzards are bumping up against that mat or backing on that inside grass line, I'm betting a dime to 1,000 that there's going to be some big bass caught like that. Out there where Corey is right now, those are schools of threadfin. And I heard Zona say earlier when I was sneaking a peek at this, he said there's a lot of shad and they're very small. And when you're fishing around pods of shad that the individual shad are small, the bass bite gets real finicky and very difficult to get around and to get those fish to commit, because they're used to eating little, lifesavers instead of T-bone steaks. So that is a very difficult situation for me to try to catch them in when they're chasing those little shad.
All right, let's talk about current. Looks like to me not a whole lot of current right now, but maybe the current did the damage prior to what we're seeing right now.
Could have, last weekend, my back doctor, Mark, was at a regional event in this body of water where 40 pounds won the tournament, and they had to deal with quite a bit of current. TVA is now starting the drawdowns in our lakes. They've already gotten these lakes down a little bit. If you look over Buddy's right shoulder there, you can see a pretty dark line where that water has fallen a significant amount in a very short time. So that even throws another monkey wrench into the situation.
All right, what's the effect on that in fall fishing, Mark?
Well, in the Tennessee River, you've got fish that are ankle deep to out there where Corey is in 25, 26 feet deep. So you've got fish that are spread out. Generally, as a general rule, Mark, I always use the terms falling water points fish out. And what I mean by that is it points them out to the outside grass line. It points them out to a land point. Falling water, these fish know that the roof is getting ready to be snatched off their heads. And so they start moving to an area where they have deep water access, close to shallow water access, and they gather on points of either cover or structure. So falling water will point these fish out before it's said and done.
All right, we're seeing the sunshine on the left there with Buddy.
Yeah, he's there you go. That's gonna be a little transition period for these fish to adjust to it, and then Buddy will do one of two things. He'll either pick up that big heavy sinker and start punching some, or he will ease out there to that structure element that he knows every inch of the bottom of that river.
All right, let me ask you this, Mark. Is it just flat out wrong to punch during low light conditions?
Well, it's not really flat out wrong, but I think I was really surprised last week about how many guys started punching early at Santee and were successful.
Yeah.
I normally seem to do better when I punch once the sun gets up and positions those fish under those mats a little bit better. So I kind of wait most of the time, fish around the edges and things like that. So it's not necessarily wrong, Mark. It just may, those fish may not be quite as aggressive as they may get, or they may not be set up in those caverns and caves under that decaying aquatic vegetation.
All right, if you were out there right now, we see two different styles, two different patterns, two different methods coming into play right now. Which would you be doing?
Well, a lot of that would depend on where I would be in the classic standings. But in events like this, I find getting 5 a day is the chore. I would probably be further up the river, knowing that I would be fishing for smaller fish on the average, but more accessible fish because of the limited amount of water they have to roam up there. So I would probably be further up. That would take the grass out of play a little bit. That would put me back more on rock situations, little points, little corners. And that would be the depending thing that would be necessary, that dam right there, such that when that water started rolling, those upriver fish would really line up and be accessible.
All right.
Look at that, Randy Sullivan. He's got a pocket full of money on this three tournament tournament deal, and he's in his zone now. He's comfortable, he's relaxed, and he is catching fish and on top of the leaderboard right now.
That was an interesting shot. I don't know who that was fishing. It could have been one of the competitors. It could have been a local. It could have been whatever. But the amount of current that is by that area right there has got to play into that. Does it not? Yeah.
It certainly will. And, there's certain dams along the Tennessee River where you can't get up close to it. There's certain parts of it you can. You just got to be careful not to get in off limits, as Tripp will have safety. Tripp Weldon will have safety issues there, and you have to follow those local and state laws there. But if you can get around that, there's always some current there. There's always going to be a fish or two around that current.
All right, we have somebody that is going to join in on the party here. Let's see if we can bring Jason in. Jason, you there, man?
Yeah, how's it going?
It's going good, man. Thanks for jumping on. Do you have any questions for Mark?
Yeah, I got a quick question. I know he's probably tired of talking about the Asian carp, but because it is an issue on the Tennessee River, and I know, and I try to keep, people talking about it too, because, sometimes people don't talk about it, they forget. But because Chickamauga's below Kentucky Lake, and I've heard that they have been moving, is that going to cause issues later on down the road for Chickamauga and other lakes like Guntersville that have been big bass factories?
Well, it absolutely will. This is a migration, a progression. The fish are moving upstream. We're trying to get a handle on them on Kentucky Lake to slow that progression down. Asian carp have been identified by Tennessee Fish and Wildlife on Chickamauga. I saw silver carp during the Bassmasters Classic on Guntersville this year. I saw a pod of 6 to 8 of them right there about waterfront under a boat dock. Lee Livesey snagged an 85-pound big head in Guntersville. So they're there. And we all need to do our due diligence, Jason. Thank you for keeping the awareness up. We all need to reach out to our elected officials and say, hey, this matters to us. It's an economic issue, and it's just an overall health and welfare of our waterways in the country. The Tennessee River right now, we're doing several things. AFCO gave the Lyon County folks on Lake Barkley a stipend to go for monies for the commercial fishermen, a bounty per pound on the fish, which was up to 250,000 pounds that they're paying for. We can do other things and go to AFCO.com and buy one of the Asian carp t-shirts, where $5 of every one of those t-shirts that get sold go right back to the Asian carp fight. I'm still working with Yamaha Right Waters, and as soon as this pandemic slows down, I'm going back to D.C. to knock on the doors of our senators and congressmen and say, look, this is an economic issue, and it's only getting worse. So I talk about it every day, Jason. So education is the biggest thing we can do. Tell all your buddies, have them get online, read about how fast these things reproduce, what they do to the ecosystem. We need to do all of these things. So I appreciate your diligence and your fight as well. So just keep that going. But it is a forward moving. It's moving up. Pickwick is going to see a demise in the future if we don't get a handle on this, because it's got a huge population of them as well. I was on Old Hickory Lake on the Cumberland River 2 weekends ago and saw a pod of them on my Garmin unit the other day. I know exactly what they look like and actually hit one of them with my crankbait as I threw it. So they're moving up every river system that's connected to the Mississippi River.
Yeah, I grew up in Kentucky, and while I was living in Arizona, actually, we went back to Kentucky Lake. I took my current wife and son to Kentucky Lake, and we were out just enjoying boat riding on Barkley and ran into a whole pod of silvers that jumped. And, it's really dangerous. And I don't think people understand really how it impacts not only the fishermen, but also recreational boaters.
It certainly does. I was filming one of my television shows, Mark Menendez Bass TV, and the episode just aired, and I actually caught a 4-pound silver in the mouth with a red-eyed shad, if you can believe that. And then 10 minutes later, I put my foot on the motor guide, and about a 20-pounder dives in the boat with me. So, yeah, it's new challenges, and you have to be very cautious about it. The one thing I will tell you, Jason, I've been on the Ohio and the Tennessee and the Cumberland Rivers where they join here in Paducah with my children over the last couple of weeks, and it looks like the overall health and welfare of what Asian carp I'm seeing has diminished quite a bit. They don't look as big. They don't look as healthy. So maybe Mother Nature is figuring a way out right now to put an interruption on that population. And that's what I'm really, really hoping for at this point.
I did hear a rumor that there was a huge fish kill a couple years ago with Asian carp on Kentucky Lake, and Kentucky Fish and Wildlife were looking into it to see what caused it, whether it was a bacteria, a virus, or whatever, because those were the only fish that were affected. So do you know anything about that?
Well, what actually happened was there was a bacteria that got into a relatively high population in the shallow water areas. It affected the smaller Asian carp, those 3 to 5 pound fish, more so as a whole than the bigger, more fertile Asian carp. Those bigger fish stayed a little deeper and stayed out of that. And it was a mess. There were 3 to 5 pound Asian carp laying along the bank on Kentucky and Barkley Lake everywhere. That has happened a couple of times below the dams on Kentucky and Barkley Lakes. And so that's one thing that's happened in which Mother Nature has stuck her neck in there and helped us get rid of some of those numbers. So what we do now to stop that, we have the BAF, the biological acoustic fish fence on Barkley Dam right now. We're putting a second lock in on Kentucky Lake, which will have the ability to put one of those on both the locks on Kentucky Lake. And when we can get those up and running on both sides, we will really slow the influx of those fish into the Tennessee and Cumberland rivers.
Okay. Thanks again for answering those questions. But
you're very welcome. Very welcome. It's a very serious thing, and we really need to stay on it. It's not one of those things that's going to go away anytime soon. But I still talk to our fisheries people in Tennessee and Kentucky, and they're still hopeful that we can arrest this situation. They're still hopeful.
Yeah, I guess we all are in a lot of ways that we can at least get it under control. You know, like they're here to stay. It's just like any invasive species. They're like here. So now it's just how do you deal with them? So,
well, Fish and Wildlife is dealing with 187 invasive, both terrestrial and aquatic, across the nation. And we have a relatively new director at Federal Fish and Wildlife. Her name is Aurelia Skipworth. She is a biologist turned lawyer. I've had multiple conversations with her. And with her leading the reins of this, I am very, very impressed with her and the ability to get this slowed down. So we've got somebody in charge that is aware of the situation.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Let's see if I can get the audio on John Cox here and see what he has to say.
Fish already. A 35.
John Cox, if you're just joining us, a guy with a tremendous record here at Chickamauga. Good record a lot of places, but here we go.
There we go. There we go. I was getting worried. I don't know about you, but I was getting worried. We've gone so long without a bite. Got him on the Maxant creature hog. Oh, that's a good sign. It's a good sign.
One more look at this. John Cox, been a long wait, but good quality keeper in the box there. John Cox from Florida, from northern Florida, but considered a favorite here. Definitely considered one of the favorites for the aforementioned reasons. Just a great tournament record here. We talk about favorites. I mean, you know, everybody's picking them right now. Fantasy fishing is huge.
All right, Mark. As we can see, he has went to flip in, punch in, whatever you want to call it, there off that grass line. As we see, it's still overcast. And I asked the question earlier, you know, do you wait till the sun comes out? But my question, based upon what just happened there, the expectations are, based upon the conditions that are put forth, you may go an hour and a half without getting a bite, correct?
Yes, absolutely. You may go 3 hours between bites. Now, here is a very accomplished angler, a winning angler on many circuits and many different bodies, and this body of water as well. And you just heard him. I was getting a little worried.
Yeah.
You know, 3 hours in, and he puts his first keeper in the boat, and this will instantly settle John down. He'll get back into his rhythm. That mind will start clicking, and watch out. John will grab some momentum and catch him 2 or 3 real quick. This is what's coming.
You know what would be cool, and I don't know if anybody's done this or even thought about doing this. For some of those students, college students that are out there that are college anglers, this would be a really cool research paper. The amount of effect that tournaments have on tournaments. Does that make any sense, Mark? In other words, there was a huge BFL on Chick the weekend before.
Right.
Take a study, look at the samples, look at conditions, look at everything that is involved when you have tournaments upon tournaments, and see if there's a correlation there where pressure truly affects the latter tournament.
Well, you very well, and you could do that very easily, Mark. You could take the amount of fish caught and the amount of time and the amount of anglers that are fishing and figure out a catch rate per hour. And that would show up. That would be very neat to see what happens on the residual tournaments afterwards.
See, I'm throwing out ideas to our college anglers right there. That's a heck of a research paper right there.
It would definitely get you out of your class, that's for sure, and get it done. Now here's Buddy out here. Look, he's moved offshore, and I guarantee he's throwing at some little subtlety that that he knows is there that the average elite guy doesn't have a clue that it's there. I wonder if he's in grass or it looks like he's offshore. He looks like he's throwing either a big swim bait or a big chatter style bait.
All right, let's talk a little old school here. I was watching the documentary with a friend of mine that we did on Robert Hamilton. And Robert Hamilton won that Bassmaster Classic in the 90s using a big bladed spinnerbait. That and a couple other things. But he caught a lot of fish on this massively ginormous spinnerbait with big blades on it. Can you throw that, because you mentioned the threadfin shad? Is that something that could come into play this week?
Well, it could, and I don't see a lot of our guys doing that from time to time when we get these offshore tournaments. One of the things I said earlier is gizzard shad. These Tennessee River bass, they're lazy, Mark. They like a big, easy meal, and that big gizzard shad gets them a big meal quick. And that big spinnerbait out there off of a break line, or for a suspended fish out there off of a break line, I've caught the biggest fish I've ever caught on Kentucky Lake, which was a 9 1/4 on a spinnerbait on structure out there like that. It looks like that big gizzard shad going by, and they're going to take that over Snicker candy bars any day. It is a technique in which you don't get a lot of bites this time of year, but when you do, you don't have to worry about a measuring board either. So if I can find that where I can get 3 to 5 bites like that a day, you doggone right, I'm going to throw that big 1 ounce, 3/4 ounce or 1 ounce spinnerbait out there.
Yeah.
One of my
All right,
favorite
Jason.
bites in fishing.
Jason, you have a question?
Yeah. Hey, Mark, how come people don't punch more with a worm? Since like you're looking for that smaller, easy to go through the grass, and it seems to me a worm would be smoother and would fall through the grass better than like a creature bait. So how come people don't use worms more than creature baits?
Well, it just depends. You can flip a worm through there, but when it comes through that mat, Jason, it is a thinner diameter. It's less of a profile for those fish to zero in on. This is a complete reaction bite. It's not a hunger bite. And with everything compact, it does two things. A, it goes through that grass easier for the angler. And B, you know exactly where that hook is, and that fish is just focusing on that movement, where that worm, he may not get that hook. He may bite that worm, but he may be above or below that hook. So it just seems like to me, when you're punching that grass like that, that compact allows that fish a better shot at the hook versus a worm. If I'm fishing slower, if I'm fishing much slower and that grass is not as thick, I may put a worm in there and kind of punch through it as well. But where it's, in chunkier grass, where I may get it in there and really yo-yo it and fish super slow. But the way we tend to do it is move down the bank, make those presentations, punch it through and get that reaction bite. Just gives them less to hone in on and a higher hookup percentage. Because punching, you do lose a lot of fish, or at least I do.
Thanks.
All right, so we have both shots here. Looks like both guys are out. And it looks like Corey's got a little company there. I think that was Stetson Blaylock, but I'm not sure.
I think you're correct. You're correct.
I mean, is it that big of a deal, especially on a TVA body of water, to be bunched up like that? It's not that big a deal, is it, Mark?
It's not, unless there's a real significant little feature there, a little corner, a brush pile or something like that, and both guys are trying to fish in it. That's tough. But on long ledges, it's not that big a deal, like on Kentucky Lake. The one thing that I will say about Chickamauga, even though it's a Tennessee River lake, there's a lot of community holes on this lake. And the reason they're community holes is because they hold fish. Yeah. Chickamauga doesn't have a tremendous amount of offshore area to fish versus a Kentucky lake that has miles upon miles of ledge and drop off. And so you're condensed in a much smaller section of this lake. say the bottom 15 miles is where most of that structure is, and that's where it gets most of the pressure. Kentucky Lake can handle so many more boats because it's just so much bigger. Gunnersville again is twice as big as Chick is. So it's tough. It's tough, Mark. It really is.
All right, we're looking at a review of Clark, who's just having an unbelievable season. And Matt and I were talking about this the other day. Mark, do you think a lot of the young anglers, the next generation of guys that are out on tour, understand how good some of the seasoned vets truly are? Or do they just look at you and Clark and David Fritz and a lot of the other guys as somebody that's just kind of been around for a while? Or do you think they embrace how good that the seasoned vets truly are?
Well, regardless of who the angler is, if he's one of those guys that has done a lot of seminars or is active on Bassmaster Magazine, and we've taught a lot of these young guys a lot of these techniques. And with the advent of the technology, we basically learned how to find fish with our rods and reels. Now these guys are using the new Garmin's, the new units to be able to see fish and find fish quicker. And they're developing their own new techniques that will move forward. I think it's pretty cool when the guys rub elbows with us and give us a hard time, and we give them a hard time. But they are very respectful of the gray hair crowd just for all the years that we've put in and have been here this long. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, Mark.
The resume that Clark has and the amount of success that Clark has had in this business is just amazing. It really is. He's one of the top guys out there. And if he does pull through and win Angler of the Year, me personally will not be shocked whatsoever.
Oh, no, not at all. Clark was a fabulous angler. Now, what a lot of people don't realize, he had tremendous success on the FLW Tour, but before leaving the FLW Tour, he had made 5 Bassmasters Classics. So he had fished with us in the top 100s. He was a preeminent top finisher in those events, and he's just carried on at whatever format that he fished in. So he's very laid back, super competitive, but very laid back, very efficient at what he does, and one of the most positive people on tour. So he has fought through several rough days over this 2-week period just to continue to get 5, and I expect him to have no less than 5 at weigh-in today when it's all said and done. I wish he'd hurry up and get started, though.
Yeah. Did you know that he's probably the best ping pong player on tour?
I didn't know that.
Yes.
I would like to put my my college championship ping pong skills up against Clark. I'm a big ping pong player. Haven't been a college tennis player as well. So I did not know that he was serious about the game of pong.
Oh yeah. I mean, massively serious. It was a few years ago that we had an Oklahoma versus Texas tournament down on Lake Falcon, and the highlight was the table tennis tournament, not the fishing at Falcon, in his opinion. And yes, he was victorious. He destroyed everybody.
Huh. Well, I'll have to get on him the next time I see him about that.
Yeah.
That's unique. I majored in ping pong in college.
Really? Yeah. We need to maybe live stream that event, man. Get Vegas to take some bets on that one, maybe.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
All right. By the way, his television show, really good. It does appear on certain cable outlets and satellite services, but his Fishing Texas television show is really good too.
He does. He's teaching. He's teaching anglers how to catch more bass, and I think that's great that he's doing that. And it's kind of a responsibility of all of ours to help this next generation. It's a little faster now than it used to be, Mark, with things like Bass Zone, getting to the nitty gritty on there. Bassmaster Magazine is all I used to have, and I used to have to wait, 2 months at a time to get a new episode or new part of the magazine there to learn. And now learning is moving so fast. And the college fishing is just what amazes me, is how quickly these kids assimilate the knowledge and become very efficient anglers in their own right. I'm fishing against 25 college anglers as it is now in the Elite Series, and they're only going to take the rest of the places as us old guys go away. So it's amazing how good a fishermen these young people are.
All right, I'm going to talk about the future real quick as we look at John Cox and Brian Snowden. What are your thoughts about this, Mark? Would you like to see different locations in 2021? In other words, is it finally time to go to some bodies of water that the Elite Series or Bass just hasn't been to in a long time? I'm going to throw out an example, like High Rock Lake.
Well, I think it would be good. I like those challenges. I like going to these places. The problem with some of these venues, Mark, is actually accommodations on some of these smaller lakes, these lakes that we don't get a chance to fish with. They don't have those chambers of commerces that want to bring us there. That's the business side of it. I'm for fishing on some of the same locations like we've gotten to see this year of locations in which we go to at a different time of the year. This has brought a lot of variance to the fishing coverage and to what the techniques that these guys are using on like the Gunnersville event a couple of weeks ago. We've never fished Gunnersville in the fall at an upper level like this. There's been some opens there in the fall. There's always regional events there in the fall. So it changes the technique and it changed the leaderboard up as well. So let's change things around. I would love to see the Classic go back to a summer classic so that more folks can come and enjoy that on their summer vacations, get more kids involved. I think those are tougher tournaments than in the spring. I would love to see us fish later in the year. I'm not a deer hunter, so it doesn't make any difference to me about the deer hunt. My guys are going to shoot me over this, but let's fish some fall tournaments. Let's fish some late winter tournaments. Let's move this around and change the stagnant places that we've been to. Let's just go some different places at different times, or the same places at different times.
Yeah, I think the fans are really enjoying seeing how you guys attack, how the pros attack these bodies of water in a different time of the year. I think the industry itself is going to benefit from this too.
Absolutely.
By absolutely marketing some of the techniques and the tackle and lures and rods and reels and everything that everybody's having success on during this time of the year, because I think there are a lot of anglers out there that fish this time of the year. They've just haven't had anything to relate to.
Absolutely.
From a performance standpoint.
One of the things I've really been surprised in these last 3 tournaments that I haven't seen is a crankbait. A crankbait's something I've used tremendously in the fall. Spent a lot of time in my hands. After the broadcast today, I'm headed to Kentucky Lake, and there's going to be a plug in my hand. I have not seen a crankbait play, and that may be because we've had so much vegetation to deal with on these last 3 events. But I guarantee it'll play at Lake Fork. You watch. There'll be a bunch of crankbaits being slung around at Lake Fork.
Oh, yeah. Now, we haven't seen Brian Snowden for a while. He's, obviously a table rock specialist. But I want to go back to in history with Brian. And this is a good time to bring this up and pick your brain on this, Mark. One of the most mentally challenging events that took place was that one event that took place at I believe it was the St. Johns River, where he was leading going into the final day.
That's the Harris chain.
The Harris chain. That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. I'm sorry. And he was dominant that entire week. And this was when myself and Harold Allen were actually on the water following these guys. And the struggles that Brian went through on that final day, he didn't get a bite. Not a single bite, I was in that final as well. Yeah.
And the day before I'd caught 24.5 pounds and a big front came through and it got ultra tough. Now you see Brian, look at him. He's like molasses. He's slow. He never gets in a hurry. He is rock solid. And for him not to have caught a bass that day was a major, but it was a very tough day. I remember only having 3 for like 3 pounds and moved up in the standings that day.
Now, I want to say this about Brian, and I've known Brian for a while. The coolest thing and really the admirable thing about Brian was he got over that. He was one of the few anglers that just did not let that eat away at him. In fact, the next week, he was pretty much over it. And that's massive disappointment. I mean, trying to get your first Elite Series win, and you go out, you've led the thing, you've had a great week, and then disaster takes place on the final day. That's got to be one of the most difficult tasks in this profession to get over, just from the mental part of this game, when you have it in your grasp and it just doesn't happen.
Well, the good thing for that week for Brian is he got a second place check. He looked at that as a victory, a small victory on his own, and he did. He let it go. But that's Brian's personality. He's very easygoing, doesn't let adversity slow him down. And he has a title as a professional fisherman. He won the TTBC, a very tough tournament. But he also holds another designation that has been given to me as well as a journeyman. And that is someone, by definition, who is good at their craft, who has been there, done that, had the accolades, and he's still doing it. And it takes a humongous amount of respect for someone. I have a humongous amount of respect for someone like that who's built a good career on being a steady Eddie performer. And Brian's one of those people, and that tournament helped mold him and shape him to give him that journeyman title, which I give him a lot of respect for.
Mark, I'm going to tell you, and for anybody out there that thinks that this statement is wrong, I want you to shoot me an email. Heck, I'll even give you my cell phone number, and you can call me and tell me that I'm absolutely wrong on this. But it is one of the hardest things to do in life, in sports, in anything, is win. Everything has to happen right to win. So when you see these guys that have multiple blue trophies, it's mind-boggling to me what has to take place and the amount of effort that goes into play for a Brandon Polinick to have as many blue trophies as he has.
You know, it's amazing. I fished, I think it's 240 Bassmasters events, and I have 3 first-place trophies to show for it. That's right at 1%, and that's more than most guys. I'm very fortunate in my career to have 3 trophies. Brandon, as a young person, has 5 blue trophies, and that's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
It just is you have to have everything line up. The planets have to line up. Good fortune has to happen. You have to fish clean. You have to have water to yourself. Don't have any other anglers in there, messing with you, giving you a challenge in your area. Everything has to go perfect to win one of these. And that's just about every bass tournament that goes on. Not only ours, but every bass tournament.
Just guys that have multiple wins. It's just it's so impressive. And really anything in sports, when you really think about it, to win at the highest level or even at a mid-level, it's just so hard to win.
Oh, it sure is. I mean, it's and then you see those guys that extenuate themselves from the crowds with 5, 7, 8, 10, 12 wins there. I mean, you think about Clunn. He's fished 32 classics and he's won it 4 times. So 1 out of every 8 that he qualified for, he won. But think about those 8 years to get to a chance to win one of those classics. How many miles were traveled? How much money was spent? How many things that he had to he had to cost average as far as how many flat tires did he have? It's all of these things come into focus there, and it is just amazing to think about what it takes to win at this or any other level.
All right, let's see if we can hear anything from Clark here.
Birdie.
Yeah.
His wheels are spinning right now, Mark. He's thinking.
Yeah. Not saying a whole lot.
He's focused on trying to get that next spot. What do I got to do to get that
The thing
next
about it is when it's as tough as it is, in practice, you just don't know when you get a bite if those fish are just lying to you or not. In other words, is there really a lot there or is there nothing there? You know, is it just a fluke or is it really good? And just so few bites, it's just hard to know.
David Mullins has been kind of in and out, mostly out of camera range for most of.
All right, Clark, without a keeper so far, and we're, 3 hours into it?
Exactly. I'm pulling up Bass Track right now, and it shows Caleb Summerall with 5 that weigh 13 pounds. And I'm going to bet, Mark, that's a big, heavy sinker punching. That's what Caleb is really, really good at. And after that, it falls to 2 fish. Luke Palmer showing 5 for 8.4. It's onesie, twosies, and threesies in the top 10, and that's amazing at this point of the morning at 10:30 Eastern time. Those guys have been fishing for over 3.5 hours now, so you can tell how tough it is.
I had to get a chuckle at a post that was on the YouTube feedback. I have not seen that, Clay. So me not being the social entertainment guy that peruses the interweb on all the social entertainment platforms, go ahead and send that to me. I'd love to see that photo. Mark at basszone.com. Send it to me. Somebody out there having some fun with Photoshop there, Mark.
Uh-oh. There's no telling what that may be.
Wow. Anyway, let's see here. Jason, anything for Mark?
Nothing right now. I was like,
okay.
Just sitting listening, so.
Clay says I don't want to see it, but it's excellent. Yeah, send it to me. I like a good chuckle. Have you ever been to Buc-ee's, Mark? Do you know what Buc-ee's is?
No, I've never been.
Well, if you're in Texas, you'll know what Buc-ee's is. I had a bowling tournament in Texas this past weekend, and it is a must to stop in Buc-ee's in Denton, Texas. So for those people that will be going back and forth to Lake Ray Roberts during the Classic, you will venture by Buc-ee's on a daily basis.
Gotcha.
It's the most tremendous convenience store in the history of the world. I mean, the one in Denton and the one that is right by the Texas Motor Speedway on the way to Fort Worth, I think they have like 50 gas pumps.
Oh, my goodness.
It's pretty impressive. Very impressive. All right. So kind of what we expected, Mark? Is it what you expected?
Yeah, I knew it would be tough. I didn't think it would be quite this slow. The one thing I'm hoping is as the day warms up, the fishing will warm up a little bit, and we'll see some pushes towards the afternoons, a little bit better fishing. Still on Bass Track, which, Bass Track, you can't really – you get a gauge on what's going on. It looks like there's only 39 of 85 that have registered a fish. I'm sure there's some of these other guys at the bottom that have a fish or two that just haven't registered them yet, or they haven't pinged in on Bass Track. But lots of onesies and onesies, 2-pounder after 2-pounder is what I'm seeing right now.
How much is luck going to play into this tournament, Mark?
This is one of those. That's a great point. This is one of those where luck is. You heard Clark just say that, the fish may lie to you in practice and you're not getting enough bites. Well, the guy that gets a 5 or a 6-pound bite arbitrarily, that's going to be luck. He knew he was going to get 3 to 4 bites a day. He was expecting to have 8 to 9 pounds, and he catches a 5-pounder and he ends up with 15 pounds with 5 fish or 4 fish. There's going to be some guys that only get 2 or 3 bites today that will be up in the top 20 when the day's over with, 8 or 12 or 14 pounds of fish with 2 bites. So the luck comes into that factor that you got a bite, and then it just happened to be a big fish. That's what kind of luck I think we're going to see.
Wow. Current. I still can't believe that current's not going to come into play.
Well, it's cool this time of the year, and the electrical need for air conditioning is lessened. So we may not see as much current as we need. I think you're going to see the continual drawdown, which may throw a little bit of current in the lake. They may do that in the evenings. I have not looked at the schedule, the drawdown schedule or the power schedule. Yeah. So those little windows of opportunity, if they happen to hit with tournament hours, are going to make a big difference. You better be on a place where you can catch one at that time.
All right. Interesting question on the YouTube comments. Nobody can lock, can they, in this event?
In this event. Not in this event. They kept the playing grounds of Chickamauga only. Now, last weekend in that regional event, they could lock down as well as lock up if they desired to.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised how many guys stayed home, stayed close last week. Were you?
Well, not really. Not really. At Santee, you've got the upper lake and the lower lake. The lower lake is much cleaner. I was really surprised that Steve Kennedy had such a tough day on the third day. I had Steve pick to win, fishing in an area that was had no pressure, fishing in an area in clean water, which put the odds against him, and he was being successful. I just knew. In fact, I even texted Zona. I said, Kennedy is my horse in this event. And he said, me too. And we were both wrong. So it didn't. The upper lake plays better, dirtier water. I try to find dirty water this time of the year for those high bluebird days to give me an advantage. So those fish are just not so light sensitive. And here in this body of water, it's going to be hard to find some dirty water. So to this afternoon and tomorrow, it could be tough. It could be really tough when that front pushes on through.
Yeah, Clay wants to know, if you could lock through, where would you go?
I'd go straight to Nickajack.
Okay.
Historically on the Tennessee River, the highest catches of 3-pound bass or over, the shortest duration of time that is, has always been on Nickajack. One of the most fertile small lakes that doesn't get the pressure because it doesn't host many big tournaments, but that darn little old bitty lake has got a ton of fish in it. I'd head straight to Nickajack.
All right, there you have it, Clay. All right, we have one more event at Lake Fork, but what's on your schedule, Mark? Are you going to try and fish maybe a local tournament? You going to, spend more time on the water? What's the plan for you?
Well, right now it's still getting stronger and getting better from this darn back injury. I'm at about 85%. There's a big charity tournament that my son and I may fish here in a couple of weeks here. I'm spending 4 to 6 hours at a time on the water, just trying to hone my craft. I'm kind of eyeing the last open tournament of the year at Lake. I may see if I can get into that tournament if I feel strong enough here in the next couple 3 weeks, make that evaluation and just to kind of gauge where I am, Mark. If I need to hire a personal trainer to get in better shape, I may do that for the last 8 weeks before I get ready to go back on tour in February. But I am preparing. New boat coming. New boat goes into production on the 25th of October. So all the good fun of gathering your stuff to put a new boat together, get it wrapped, get all your electronics, your trolling motors and all that on it. Busy time, but I'm thinking and I'm fishing a whole lot more than what I have been over the last 4 months.
All right. How old are you, Mark?
56. Just turned 56 last month.
How many years do you think you have left in you that you want to tournament fish at the highest level?
About 30 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. My desire has been rekindled over the last couple of years, and I see myself being very effective for the next couple 3 years. I'd like to fish a little bit more, and then transition to something else. Maybe it be with my television show, move that up or whatever. I won't leave fishing when I leave competitive fishing, but I say I've got several years left in me.
Very cool. I was going to ask you too, is Mike Otten still around the Kentucky Lake area?
No, Mike's not.
He's not?
Mike is doing other things now. He's not fishing much anymore. Yeah. Mike has been helpful with my television show. He let us borrow some equipment, let Kevin, the bait man, Baxter use some equipment. So he's still got his hand dabbling in some television, but I believe he's back home in the Indianapolis area, I believe.
Okay. I mean, he was kind of a staple around that area for a number of years.
Yeah, he moved to our area and had a production company here and fished out of here and did a lot of outdoor activity here.
All right, we're looking at where 3 of the competitors are there on Bass's graphic, but we should start to see, or should we start to see more guys kind of move out where we saw Corey and Stetson Blaylock.
Well, they're showing Stetson there with 4. That's a heck of a good catch. I think you're going to see more people move to that river channel, punch that grass, or get out off that what little structure that's available there to try to find some of those deeper fish. If Stetson's got 4 in a live well, he's out there with a spinning rod. You know, he's probably using a drop shot or a Ned rig, something small, just to gather up 4. That's going to be a good catch, having 4 keepers as it has turned out to be so far.
All right, let's see if we can get audio from
2
him.
full days of practice on the bank trying to just get bites, and it was just a struggle just to find an area where I felt confident that I could go in there and catch a few fish. And so the last day I spent most of the day offshore looking, and was able to find just a couple places, not much of anything, and they could dry up. They could be dry now, but there's a few of us out doing this. There's a couple guys started with me this morning on the spot, and you know, I know how critical catching the limit is going to be this week each day. So I think these fish are just, you know, it's not real deep in here. So a lot of these shallower bars, it's considered offshore, but they're not really deep.
Can you kind of walk us through how you've been catching them this morning?
Well, I've just been throwing moving baits. Actually caught my 4th one on a drop shot, but throwing a crankbait and scrounge your head out there, just trying to get those quick aggressive ones, and it worked, you know, for the 4 I've got. But I knew it was going to be a grind. I really thought a couple of these places that I found you could pull up and catch 5 really quick, but I don't know if it's the cloud cover or if it's just the fishing pressure. I know there's other people out here. It's been really crowded this week during the week. And I've seen a lot of people out fishing some of this stuff. So there's no telling why they're not really grouped up biting this morning. Obviously, we've had a pretty strong front blow through, so that could have something to do with it. But I'm going to stay positive. I got 4 early, and hopefully I can get one more in the box.
Stetson, thanks a lot for letting us interrupt right there. Stetson Blaylock.
All right, that sounds like potluck to me, Mark.
Well, you know, he gambled on that, and one of the things that happens on the Tennessee River is you'll have those fish out there on that structure, and they tend to be smaller. Those smaller bass move out there, and they're still catchable. So I would love to know what those 4 are. I don't see him on Bass Track, but he's not entered them in yet. I bet you they're just 4 solid keepers, probably in that 9 to 12 pound range, and that's, like I said, 13 a day. You'll be fishing on the championship final day.
Oh, yeah. I'm curious, fans, you guys out there that are watching live right now on YouTube, you tell me, do you like watching a grind like this? Do you like seeing the guys struggle, bites come apart, you know, every 2-3 hours? What are your thoughts? What can you feed back to us? Is this what you like to see, or do you like to see the swing fest? What do you like to fish, Mark?
I like a grinder. I love a grinder. I just feel like that, you know, your mental capability keeps you in that. And then if you get thrown a drop of luck, then you move on up. I like grinders. I've done well in swing fest, but a grinder is one that I really feel like I have an advantage in.
Yeah, I like watching a grinder. I do. You look at any of the sports. Why do you think in golf there's a few more people and a lot more people that do golf like watching the U.S. Open? Because it's one of the toughest golf tournaments in existence. The rough is high. The greens are super fast. They want to see these guys be normal. All right. Are we seeing these guys on the Chick right now just be normal anglers? What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, those of us that work 9 to 5 and we're going to go fishing on Saturday morning after a long work week, and then we get a front thrown at us. Now we're seeing that on these guys that they've gone to work today and they've had a front thrown at them, and they want to see how successful they can be. It's real, Mark. It becomes real. Struggle. Yeah. You know, all we see are these guys holding up blue trophies and great big bass, you know, 7-pounders on each hand. And in this event, they're going to be happy to have a 15-incher in each hand. And those are the tournaments. Those are the situations. And things that we have to deal with as anglers all the time, and this becomes real.
All right, here's some of the comments coming in now. I'm going to throw a couple of them out there. A lot of people like the grinders, Mark.
Yeah, well, I love to see it when you can learn something, when you can be successful on these type things, and you can take a trick home and put it in your bag to help your own fishing. So you're going to see a lot of tricks go on here in the next couple 3 days on this event.
One of the points that were made on the instant feedback, not on the YouTube comments, was this guy said, I can relate more to what they're doing now with my fishing because so many times I struggle when I go out.
Sure.
They're much more relatable.
Yeah. I mean, we all, what do we do next? What do we do next? And, we've all been in that situation, Mark, where we needed to catch one more keeper for our club championship or our team tournament or whatever we're doing. And this is how you learn to do that. Is it pick up a flipping stick like John Cox is doing? Or is it like a spinning rod with some kind of finesse bait like Randy Pearson's doing over here on the right? Being from California, he's comfortable with that light line presentation. John being from Florida, he's comfortable with that big stick in his hand. So it shows what angler strengths actually are.
Yeah, that's great feedback from the people that are watching now. So greatly appreciate your thoughts. So who do you think is more stressed out right now? Buddy Gross being obviously the favorite, or Clark Wendlandt, who doesn't have a keeper in the boat yet?
Oh, I'd say Buddy is by far. He's got the pressure of the Lake Chickamauga community on his shoulders. He's expected to do well. He's won here many times in other events, but he's expected to do well. Clark is just going through a tough day at work right now. But I always hate it when we have a national event here on Kentucky Lake. I've made some of the finals, and I've had some real blowouts just because of the pressure as well. And we all want to do better. We want to do better on our home bodies of water. It's just the way it is.
Interesting question here. Did the anglers get better, or did the technology get better?
I'm going to say that anglers are getting better, because these young kids are very open to the technology. You take that technology away from them, and they're still unbelievable anglers. Now, would they take them a little time to have to go back and learn more about seasonal pattern and rely less on technology? Yeah, that would be a major advantage to me if they only had that little red light that went round and round and round like we all grew up with. But I think overall, because of the college fishing, the anglers coming to the Elite Series are better anglers overall because they've been in so many tough situations already just because of the college angling that they go through. They go through a lot of different venues, Mark, in a very short time as college anglers. So they're very well prepared when they come out.
Let's see here. I'm looking at the feedback. Multiple statements on the YouTube comments and on the instant feedback about, hey, you still have to go out and catch them. No matter what, you still have to go catch them.
You do. You have to put yourself in an availability to get 5 bites during the day and then be efficient enough to get them in the boat. You've got to catch them every day. And fortunately, if Clark and Corey have a tough day, this is one tournament that you can have one good catch during the day. Wow. And jump way back in there. So this one, you've got to fish every minute of every hour of each day as hard as you possibly can.
Interesting comment here from a viewer on YouTube says, nothing is really a secret anymore. You agree with that, Mark?
I absolutely do agree with that. That's from my good friend, Tim Rivest, cancer survivor and great fisherman in his own right. Tim's exactly right. Nothing's a secret anymore because of the broadcast. I could come up with a new technique, Mark, out of this world, have developed this technique, and then it be shown on the broadcast, and then somebody within the hour could go out there and learn that technique, do that technique, where, like I said before, it took months to get information to me with Bassmaster Magazine without the video. And it took months for these things to develop. Now you can learn things so fast.
Ricky says the new generation of guys are more versatile than us old schoolers. I don't necessarily agree with that 100%.
Well, I don't think they're more versatile. I just think they're more open to change.
Yeah.
When you're younger, you're more likely to go do something that you're not as comfortable with as when you get old and decrepit, like you and I, Mark. We're old farts and we like to do what we like to do. But these young kids, they're very open to new thought processes. So I think they're great.
A comment here, it says, I like the technology, but one thing that I do like is I can go do what I like to do best, which is fish shallow, because a lot of people are fishing deep now because of technology. Are we seeing a trend here, Mark?
Well, I think you are seeing a wave of deep water success and the availability opening up, because GPS units are becoming less expensive and they're just as good as some of the more technical units that you can use. So you're seeing deep water being exploited a lot more now. So J-Rod, keep that spinnerbait in your hand, keep that flipping stick in your hand, keep that square bill in your hand, but the wave will come back once they start seeing that fish still live shallow as well. I promise it will.
All right, Jason is still on. Jason, do you have a question? Let's see here.
In the background. There you go.
All right.
Yeah, I just first off, I want to thank you, Mark, for allowing me to do this today. But with the change in, I know earlier you were talking about moving the schedule around, fishing different lakes at different times of the year instead of like changing basically lakes. But I live like near Montgomery, Alabama now, and I'd really like to see you guys to come to like Lake Jordan or Lake Mitchell and fish the Coosa River a little bit and teach me some things. So.
Well, Jason, if you'll go to YouTube and pull up the Bassmasters, you can see some of that. We've been there to Lake Jordan. We've had some Elite 50 events there on Lake Jordan. Lake Jordan is one of the premier lakes in the country. It doesn't get its credit that it needs. 5-pound spotted bass abound there, and it's one of my favorite places to fish in the United States. The Coosa River is a fantastic place to fish. You know, Lake Montgomery, so to speak, the Alabama River below the dams at Lake Jordan, that's a very diverse fishery where largemouth and small and spotted bass can be targeted either way. You live in a really good place to learn so many different techniques because you have such a long fishing season there, and then very diverse places. Anytime I can get back to the Alabama River and/or Lake Jordan, I'm ready to come down there anytime.
Isn't that a great topwater lake too, Mark?
Oh, absolutely. Jordan can be great with topwaters, those big spot school. And when they crush a walking bait like a sexy dog, it still scares me to death. It really does. The Alabama Coosa River spotted bass is the meanest bass that swims. And I'm grateful they don't get over 5 or 6 pounds because they'd be eating jet skis if they didn't.
Hey, where was the craziness that Jared Miller, an Oklahoma angler, was in the rapids? Was that Jordan or was that the Alabama River?
That was the Alabama River below the old Lake Jordan Dam.
Okay. Yeah. That was insane.
That's exactly right. That's where Jay Ellis won an Angler of the Year title by going up there in his Skeeter bass boat with the current. And he put that away very easily in that tournament.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Anything else, Jason?
And Mark, when do they usually start the winter drawdowns on the Tennessee River? Do they wait until like January, or will they start November, December time frame?
Oh, it actually starts more. We'll start seeing the water levels come down in July. It's a very slow progression in July and August. They start bringing it down, and then September you see a significant difference. October to November is when you see the most of it, and that's just getting set up for the spring rains and the heavy rains that are forthcoming and the higher water volumes that are coming. So it's a progressive thing that goes over 3 or 4 months is what it is, Jason.
Okay, thanks.
All right, very cool. Mark, we're about 90 minutes into it, and once again, man, can't thank you enough for your insight on a very, very tough day on the Chick.
Well, it is tough. I expected it. Fall on the Tennessee River, as I said before, is always tough. I appreciate you having us. I appreciate the folks at Bass letting us do this, Jim Sexton and Bruce and Chase and the whole gang over there. I miss you guys. I'll see you all soon. And it's just really neat that we can piggyback with them on their great coverage that they do here on Bass Talk Live. So, Mark Jeffries, thank you for having me.
All right, man. Great stuff, folks. If you want to see these continues, please give us feedback. Throw some comments out there on YouTube. Throw some comments to me directly via my email, mark@bassound.com, and we will make sure that the parties involved will let them know how important and how cool this is to the fans to be able to get Mark involved in breaking down the action right here on BTL. We've got one more to go. Lake Fork should be a good one, Mark.
I'm going to pull the reins back on you, Mr. Jeffries, and I'm going to say it's going to be tough as nails.
Really?
I think we'll see some big weights as the fish begin to group up. It's going to be interesting to see if it's going to be late enough for those fish to really move on into some early wintertime patterns. But if they haven't and they're spread out all over Lake Fork, there's everything from top waters to a drop shot going to be seen at that event.
Yeah, so, I think a crankbait is going to come into play big time.
I think it'll be the major player. I think an underspin is going to be a player, something you don't see very often. And a swim bait will be a big player. Even a good old jig and pig might be a player at that one too, Mark. So it'll be a good one with some big fish caught.
Jig and pig. Break out the Uncle Josh, man.
Old school.
Jeez. All right. So once again, I want to let everybody know Monday, a great show. We're going to have Frank Scalish on, talk about boat setup. We're going to have his prop guy on, Todd, to talk about everything from a prop standpoint. Folks, if you want to know what's going on with your prop and your setup, don't miss this show on Monday. You're going to be able to ask questions. You're going to be able to ask questions to Frank, to Todd, and really looking forward to that. It's a great time. A lot of people, sometimes they're putting their boats away in the fall, but I think we got a little bit more now, a little bit more action. People doing a lot more fall fishing this year. So get your boat dialed in, listen to the show on Monday. And then for the remainder of the week, Tuesday and Wednesday, while Matt is fishing the Open at Neely Henry, Frank Scalish will be the guest host for the next 2 days for Tuesday and Wednesday. So a great set of shows next week. Mark, as always, man, great job. Really appreciate you doing this. One more to go. I know the fans appreciate it immensely, and look forward to the next one, man.
Well, thanks for having me again, Mark. I've enjoyed it. You're getting my juices flowing again. I'm ready to get back out there and do a little fishing. And I actually have the Skeeter hooked up to my truck, and I'm headed to Kentucky Lake for a little fishing right now.
All right. Very nice, man. Best of luck to you. Everybody out there, be safe. We will talk to you on Monday with Frank Scalish. That's it. We're out of here.